Folks, drastic changes are happening slowly. I'll get into that and then the latest home prices and insights for the Peel and Durham region for week ending April 23rd, 2025. On this show, we talk about numbers, facts. We also talk about things that happen behind the scenes that maybe are not so evident just by looking at charts and data. And one of those things is a drastic change that we see happening, but it's not happening overnight. Basement apartments. There was a time where it seemed almost every buyer we worked with wanted a home that had a basement apartment because they wanted to rent it out. And if you were selling a home that had a basement apartment, you would promote that. You would advertise that. The first few words in the listing description, basement apartment. And if it was a legal basement apartment, woo, you had so much more power because it's legal. Well, that attitude is changing as far as having a basement apartment. And there's different aspects to it. What we're seeing change, and it's not something I read somewhere, it's things we're experiencing, attitudes we're experiencing with our buyer clients. If it's not legal, it's kind of frowned upon by a lot of buyers. And that's because the cities have been cracking down on illegal basement apartments. So the city is now fining people, making people do the conversions, forcing people to make one change or another. It's not a happy situation if you're the homeowner. You've got your basement rented and the city comes by and says, hey, this isn't legal. It takes you down a rabbit hole you don't want to go down. So people buying these that are not legal, it's like, I don't want this headache. That's one thing. The other thing is the whole relationship between landlord and tenants. Over the last few years, it's becoming more and more apparent to people, to homeowners, they don't want to deal with tenants. It's that whole relationship is just not in a happy place right now. So there's a lot of homeowners that'll say, or a lot of buyers that we're working with that'll say, I don't want to deal with a tenant. And the third part is a lot more buyers we're dealing with today want the whole home for themselves. They do not want to sacrifice space in their home, even though for sure most people would like an influx of money, rental income every single month. They're buying homes today with a different attitude. If this is their principal residence, more and more buyers are choosing to have the whole home for themselves. So when we see a home with a basement apartment, their attitude is like, I'm not going to put a tenant down here, but the basement's all chopped up into these rooms now. There's no real large space for us to enjoy, our family, for my kids to come down here and play, or my kids to be down here watching movies with their friends. There's no space for that. And so they're thinking they got to redo the basement that's already been done, that's been advertised as a basement apartment, that the seller is charging a premium because they have a basement apartment. But we're finding more and more buyers don't actually want this. And this is I would say, a drastic change from the perception that sellers think, I got a basement apartment, I'll get more. It's not necessarily the case today. I'm not saying you won't, but there's more and more buyers thinking the other way, that they got no intentions of renting the basement. They are buying within their means where they don't need the rental income to be able to afford that home. And they want the home for themselves, for their own enjoyment. And they don't want to deal with tenants. It's just, there's been so much bad press about it. They don't want to deal with tenants. And that's the big, drastic change that is happening slowly. If you think this video can help somebody you know, please pass it along. If you get value from what we're talking about, subscribe. And if you want to speak with me about your real estate situation, selling, buying, it's really simple. Below this video in the description, there's a link to my calendar. Click on that, book a time that's convenient for you, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. Now, let's get into the numbers. Here we go, folks. Go Leafs, go. And now let's get into the Peel and Durham region detached property data. We're going to be focused on Mississauga, Brampton. We got Durham in the middle there with average sold prices. Let's get started. We're going to start off with Mississauga. For week ending April 23rd, we saw an increase in sale versus the previous few weeks. 44 detached properties were sold in Mississauga. I'm saying that with a smile because in all the other shows that I'm doing this week, I'm telling you reasons why sales for week ending 23rd are fewer. It's because we had the Easter weekend in the middle there, and usually when there's a long weekend or any kind of holiday in there somewhere, we see fewer sales. But not in Mississauga. 44 were sold. 4 of those were at $2 million or more. Average sold price trending down. Although it's up from the previous week, man, overall, pretty clear. Average sold price is trending down. For this week, we're sitting at $1,355,000. 1,355 is 16% lower than where we were this time a year ago. We've been lower by double digits for a few weeks now. The median price of 1,260 is 8% lower year over year. The dotted line, the 4-week moving average, trending down. Sales, if we look at sales January 1st to April 23rd, this period year to date this year versus the same period a year ago, we have 23% fewer sales in Mississauga of detached properties. Active listings climbing, although it's down slightly. It's down by 3 versus the previous week. Overall, active listings has been climbing. And months of inventory down slightly, sitting at 4 months of inventory. 4 months, the fact that it's down versus the previous week, Mississauga, one of the few areas where months of inventory actually came down this week versus the previous week. Here's Brampton. 31 detached properties were sold, so sales trending down. No properties sold at $2 million or more. Average sold price is sitting at $1,119,000. Overall, looks like it's trending down, average sold prices. Compared to last year, 1,119 is 5% lower. The median price of $1,065,000 is 7% lower year over year. Since the beginning of March, and I'm looking at the dotted line, the 4-week moving average, looks like average and median price trending downward. Year to date sales, we have 33% fewer sales of detached properties in Brampton this year versus last year. That's a big difference, 33% fewer sales. Active listings trending upwards, that continues to climb. Months of inventory climbing, we're at 8.1 months of inventory. Think about that. Brampton, detached properties. If you go back just a few years, it was so active, so busy, overbidding, prices climbing. And now we're looking at 8.1 months of inventory. Here's Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby. This is my Durham sample for detached properties. For week ending April 23rd, 29 detached properties sold. 4 of those were at $2 million or more. Average sold price shot up to $1,201,000. The 4 properties selling at $2 million or more have something to do with the average sold price shooting up so much. And the fact that there's so many fewer sales, that means the more expensive properties are a higher percentage of the overall sales this is what's happened there. 1201 is 7% higher year over year. The median price is no percent. It's a little bit lower, but rounds off to a 0% change versus a year ago. Overall, though, the dotted line is kind of showing that prices average and median, not including the week we're in now, but overall they've been trending down slightly. When we compare sales this period versus a year ago, we have 19% fewer sales in Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby of detached properties. Active listings climbing, months of inventory shot way up to 4.6 months of inventory. But before that, we were hovering in the high to 2.7 months of inventory. I think that's a little bit more accurate than where we are currently based on that 1 week of sales. Here's a quick summary of months of inventory. You will experience, especially if you're shopping in Brampton for a detached property or you're selling a detached property in Brampton, you're going to experience more of a buyer's market. Mississauga, Durham, a little bit more of a balanced market. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day. Go Leafs, go.